Good day everyone, welcome back to my channel. And for today's video, I'm here to teach you all about chapter 1 in the Foundation of Special and Inclusive Education book, which is entitled Basic Concepts in Special and Inclusive Education. This is the lesson 1. I just would like to thank my fellow classmates for making this PowerPoint so that I could have a visual aid in my presentation today. And so we have here our objectives. So what is our objective? So we have here three objectives. The first one is to understand the basic concepts of special and inclusive education. We have here what is in special and inclusive education. Two is to know the difference between inclusive education, i.e., and special education or SPED. And lastly, we have to know and understand the medical and social model of disability, which is right at the end. So without further ado, let's get started. So in our introduction, it is stated here that we should learn at the end of my presentation the concepts and principles of special and inclusive education. So this is a 20-minute video. So if you can't really have that much time, so just skip into the important parts. And so we have here that the Philippine government has implemented reforms in inclusive curriculum and teacher quality through the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers PPST. In PPST, the Philippine government has implemented their reforms so that every teacher is now expected to implement inclusive education. They should have known what kinds of disabilities such other students have and to include them in everything. So the third domain, diversity of learners, emphasize teachers' role in creating an inclusive environment. In following pages, we'll introduce terminologies like disability and inclusive education. So we have here what is inclusive education. So inclusive education has four different kinds based on this PowerPoint, four different kinds of meaning. So the first one is the most important one, which is means that inclusive education is about putting the right to education into action. So be able to really emphasize the human right of being able to access education into action that includes all learners respecting their diversity, ability, characteristics, and eliminating all forms of discrimination in the learning environment. So this is from UNESCO in 2009. So inclusive education is an education where you include all learners despite their difficulties and disabilities, and teaching and opening opportunities to them, and not able to criticize them because of what they are, what they can do, but for what they are, you should praise them. And so the second meaning we have is the process that helps overcomes barriers limiting the process, participation, and achievement of learners. This is from UNESCO 2017, page 13. It says here that inclusive education is a process that helps overcome barriers that limits everyone. So it is breaking, building a bridge so that one can unite once again. So the third one we have here is the process of strengthening the capacity of the education system to reach out to all learners. It is burning a bridge down and creating one so that we can reach out to all learners despite everything that they are and everything that they aren't. And lastly, we have is the key standard and principles of the K-12 curriculum. And as an inclusive curriculum, it is a learner-centered, developmentally appreciated, culture-sensitive, relevant, gender responsive, and contextualized. This is from the O21 series of 2019. So we know now what is the meaning of inclusive education. So what about special education? So special education or SPED is defined as classes or instructions designed for students with disabilities, giftedness, and talent. So if inclusive education is putting education into action, special education is having classes or instruction that is specifically designed for students with disabilities, giftedness, and talents. This could be further explained later on in this presentation. And so people or those children, according to some countries, with impairments that seen as requiring additional support by UNESCO 2017, page 7, is called special education needs or SEN. Again, those children with impairments that seen as requiring additional support. A term in some countries called special education needs. So these are the other related concepts of special education. We have here mainstreaming and integration. What does both of them mean? So in mainstreaming, it is practice of educating students with learning challenges in regular classes in a least restrictive environment based on their skills. So this is putting or educating students with whatever they are disabilities or whatever challenges they have in regular classes. So this is streaming them into a main place or the normalized term for the regular class. And so this is able to educate those students in a least restrictive environment and it is based on their skills. And so integration, on the other hand, according to Franklin on 1996, refers the creation of spaces such as regular classrooms, special education classrooms, or pull-out services for diverse learners. So an integration is integrating. It is creating a space to be able to integrate or to put those specific learners into other parts and to be able to open up opportunities to them. And so that is mainstreaming and integration. So what's up next? So we have here the four other concepts. So in special and inclusive education, we have here exclusion, segregation, integration, and inclusion. So what are those mean? So from the picture, no, from the figure in the PowerPoint, we have here exclusion. So in exclusion, we have occurs when students are directly or indirectly prevented from or denied access to education in any form. So from the word exclusion, we have exclude. And so this is not be able to give any right to education to those people or to those students or learners. And so we have here excluding them because of what they are. And so we have here on the circle, we have all the normal peers and all those people that are different is outside, excluding them, not giving them the right to learn about. And so that is exclusion. And segregation, on the other hand, occurs when the education of students with disabilities is provided in a separate environment, designed or used to respond to a particular or various impairments in isolation from students without disabilities. So this here we have here the opportunity for those persons with disabilities to learn, but they are isolated from those people that have that doesn't have disabilities. So from the figure below we have here, they have their own thing, and those people with disabilities have also their own thing. But they're isolated and segregated or separated from other peers. And so we have here integration. So what is integration? So integration is a process of placing persons with disabilities in existing mainstream educational institution as long as a former can adjust to the standardized requirements of such institution. So from based on earlier, integration means creating spaces for such learners to be able to integrate or to be put in a normal environment. And so we have here is that they could be able to be with fellow peers if they um, can be able to adjust to the standardized requirements of such institutions. So the students or the learners should be able to adjust what kind of learners or disabilities that is that a school or the institution can cater. So if they can't be able to fit in, they have to find another school to be fitted into. And so we have here in the figure below, we have including or integrating students or persons with disabilities into a normal classroom or regular class, but you can still see that there are separations still involved. And lastly, we have inclusion. So inclusion, very important, is accept everyone as they are, recognizing each person's individualized characteristics without trying to bring them closer to a normalized model of being, thinking, and acting. What really is normal, right? There is no normal for everyone. We are unique in our own way. So in inclusion is including everyone, recognizing this person's strength and this person's weakness. And so they are able to really stand out as just a person, not person with disability, although it is called that way because needing to have distinction, obviously. And so heterogeneity or being different, understood as norm. So therefore, the recognition and appreciation of diversity as a human right is proposed. So being able to include everyone, including everyone. So in the figure below, we have here normal peers and those person with disabilities able to unite and to interact with one another without those barriers and without those discrimination. So the next topic we have here other concepts. What is in inclusion, mainstreaming, and integration specific? So we have here inclusion. So placement of learners in a regular class is based on age. So we have here putting all those pairs of learners into the same class, despite everything, regardless of their abilities or disabilities, just based on their age. And in here we have also there are no pullouts and no shadow teaching, and individualized within the class without pullouts. So I'm able to pay attention to a specific student without pulling them out of the classroom to have one-on-one. And in mainstreaming, we have placement of learners in a regular class based on the admission requirements. So they are segregated. No, they are on a different level or base of section by section, depending on the admission requirement. In mainstreaming, we have provisions of interaction with regular children. With a regular class as child station, we have here be able to monitor the interaction with the regular children to the persons with special children and be able to integrate them into a regular class, which is that child station. And so in here, we could include shadow teaching or be able to teach in the dark or just be able to teach without without the other learners knowing. And in the regular class, we have also provision for pull out and one-on-one. Lastly, on integration, we have placement of learners in a regular class in one or more subjects or activities. Not every time they are within other people. So not every class or in every activity they are interacting with the normal peers. And so in integration, we have provisions of interaction with regular children. They still have to monitor or have interaction with other regular children, but their main classroom is a SPED class, which is a child station now. And here we have may include tutorial or be able to learn one-on-one to be able to teach them whatever they have been difficulty learning about. And so and other learning assistance programs. I don't know specifically what other learning assistance programs they are, but that is for is catered for the specific learning. And so we have here Philippine Inclusive Education. What is that? So according to Bustos at 2014, page 9, Philippine inclusive education is defined as a process where all types of learners with diverse needs are given equal opportunities for a meaningful life in a non-discriminatory environment. It is an education where all types of learners with their diverse needs, with whatever they are and whatever they can are given equal opportunities. They start at the same and they will end the same to have a meaningful life, to live a life where they don't have to worry in a non-discriminatory environment. So these environments, those non-discriminatory environments, foster belonging. They know that they belong in this place and they are accepted through culturally or spiritually sensitive, learner-centered curriculum, learning processes, delivery goals, and studies. These will all be possible if we have and implement this Philippine inclusive education. So next we have what is the difference between inclusive education and special education, you ask? So we have here side by side. So let's start with inclusive education. So in inclusive education, we have all learners, regardless of the condition, participate in a mainstream classroom alongside their age peers. So as I discussed earlier, every learner, despite of their disabilities or abilities, are put in one regular class just based on their age. And then we have here special education or learners with disabilities, giftedness, and talents are accommodated in a special class along with other learners of the same condition. So they are put together. Those learners with disabilities are with the same conditions are put together in a special class. So they're not included to a regular class. In inclusive education, we have the learners adhere to a prescribed curriculum and methodology with some accommodations, adaptations, and modifications to meet needs of learners with disabilities, giftedness, and talent. So in here in inclusive education, we have that the learner should adhere to a prescribed curriculum. We have strict curriculum where they could A teacher could use accommodate them, adapt, or have to modify to meet the needs and of the learners with disabilities, giftedness, and talent. So they could change it the way that they could with whatever they think that it could help the specific learner. And so in special education, we have here, it is based on a regular curriculum, but it is structured in the learner's condition. So whatever condition that learner may have, like intellectual disability or visual impairments, it is modified through their condition. And so it is still strict, but at the same time, it is catered for them and for them only. And so we have here inclusive education again. All students simply required good instruction, but different teaching strategies because other people might be slow learner, other might be fast learner. So they have the same materials and instruction, but they could have a different teacher could implement different strategies so that they could uh, meet those education needs. And in special education, we have the learners with disabilities, giftedness, and talents are given specialized and intensive instruction anchored on their curriculum. So whatever the curriculum is, because it's based on their condition, they are given specialized and intensive instruction. And so they don't just need good instruction, but they need to have strict and hands-on instruction so that they could learn a lot because again there are certain limitations that they do have and also they need help. And inclusive education, we have the general education teacher who oversees the learning student and in some cases with help of shadow teachers or special education teachers. So those the person who oversees the learning student in inclusive education is a general education teacher, is a normal teacher, but they could ask help for a shadow teacher or special education teacher when necessary. In special education, we have the special education teacher oversees the learning of the learner. So the person who oversees their learning is a special education teacher, not just a normal teacher, but those who have studied and have that professionalism in to teach those learners with disabilities to the best and with the help also with collaborative partnerships of other professionals listed in the Individualized Education Plan Program or IEP. Inclusive education in normal regular class would consist of 30 to 35 students. In special education, depending on the concept we have here on one, we have only one student and one teacher. For group, we have 3 to 4 students. For research groups where those need to interact with one another, we have 5 to 10 students. And so in the next part, we have what is more meaning of the special education. So again, it is refers to programs that cater to the needs of the learners with disabilities, fitness, and talents apart from their same age. So it is be able to cater their needs apart from whatever they could from other students no kay lahi man gyud ang tanan-tanan. And so it involves planning, implementing, monitoring, and evaluating specially designed and coordinated set of services through an individualized educational plan or program. In special education, we have what we call the educational individualized educational plan or program. It involves planning, implementing, and everything that is needed. And so, the more meaning of individualized educational plan program or IEP is tailored to identify and address the specific strengths and limitations toward their educational, social, behavioral, and physical development. So, this is a plan or a program designed with the specific needs of students in mind. So, we have here the strengths and their weaknesses, be able to learn what kinds of lesson, what kinds of strategies or concept is suited for that learner that they could not be able to limit their educational, social, behavioral, and physical development. Next, we have here what do we call special education needs or SEN learners. We have here in students with additional needs, we call them SWAN. Children with special needs, we call them CSN. Students with special education needs, SEN. Children with special education needs and disabilities, SEN. Learners with disabilities, preferably term according to Bustos on 2018 is LWD. So note here, we have the rights of persons with disabilities, PWD, are fundamental human rights. It is rights that we receive just because we are born and not something that we receive because we are someone born with disability or we are someone who has disability. And so we have here making education inclusive in order to be able to accept everyone and everything that they are and what they could be. teachers have some strategies in mind. And so we have here accommodation and modification strategies. We have here the name of the strategy, their meaning, and their example. So in accommodation, we have the meaning of it is change how learners with disabilities, giftedness, and talents learn the same material and meet the same expectation as their age peers. It is accommodating, be able to accommodating every one of learners, changing it a little bit or be able to change them to learn everything, every material, the same material, and be able to meet the same expectation as their age group. So they're accommodating them into a nice structured material. And so an example of this is like a person with visual impairments, most people with difficulty seeing, is using audiobook, highlighted text, or large materials to see. So this is aiding them or accommodating their needs. And modification is from the word modify is to change good. Changes what students thought or expected to learn. This is changing the way that they could so that they could be able to learn much more than they could be from the former plans. And so this example of this is a person with intellectual disabilities use less complicated text materials because that is very hard for someone who has low development in able to learn those kinds of complexity. So we have here they use less complicated text materials of different content topics in their age groups, same content but a different way of teaching or a different way of giving materials to them so that they could understand it much better. And so we have here the term disability. So the term disability is often confused with impairment, but those two are not the same. Those two are related on the other hand. So the precondition to completely understand its definition is by becoming acquainted with its two major disability models. So this is the two major disability models. We have the medical and social model. On the first one, we have the social model. So people are disabled by the barrier. So a person is being able to encounter or being the way that they are now because of certain barriers. So like no lifts or isolation, they acquired those kinds of disabilities. They don't really quite read like dyslexia, read and write because of some people and so some people or some barriers in the world. And so we have here the examples shown in the PowerPoint. And then next we have the medical model. So these are people disabled by medical condition. It could be when they were born, they acquired this medical condition, or when they live for some time, they acquired some disease or illness, or able to be in an accident, so that they acquired this kind of disability. And so, like they can't see or hear, that they can't work, and they depend on someone or something to do a lot of things. And so this is social model and medical model. We have here the first to use first people use the people first policy when addressing people. We have here a table chart with disability. So this is the correct way of saying people with disability. So we have here person with intellectual disability. That is the correct term of saying it. Not intellectual disabled person, mentally retarded, learning disabled. We have here the correct way of saying person with mental health impairment, not mentally ill, mental patient, insane, abnormal, special. So we have here, as a person, it is important to avoid discriminatory behavior in language. Not just uh, if you see someone not be able to learn the same way that you do, or not be able to do the same thing that you do, you should not you should avoid using discriminatory behavior in language. Everybody is different, and so you should accept it enough, not make them feel different, but accept them for who they are, for what they have become. And that is a truly supportive community and non-discriminatory environment suited for each and every one of us. We deserve to be loved. We deserve to be able to be welcomed by our fellow peers. So don't do such an unnecessary thing just because you think it is right, but no. Hurting another person despite them not be able to know about it is still as bad as it is. So this ends my lesson. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that our objectives are fulfilled. So, in the end, this is me, Francesca Baltorno. Thank you for watching. Bye.